for stab damage, and Explosion for a good chunk. Even better, it had Bind, which in Gen 1 could potentially mean a dead Pokemon. Potentially is important though, with an attack stat so bad it couldn't even one-hit KO Alakazam with Explosion, and it took a long time to whittle down an opponent and hope Bind didn't miss. Its best bet was to switch in on electric moves, and then try to do some stab damage, or cheese paralyzed Mons with Bind. But even if this thing didn't lose to every single overused Pokemon, it's just straight up worse than Golem in every way. In underused, it lost to practically every grass and water type for obvious reasons. And fun fact, I have fond memories of using Hydro Pump on Onix at Pokemon Stadium and watching it fall apart as it got completely obliterated. And that's probably pretty dark and I should get myself checked. But anyways, underused in Smogon, but you know, there's only 2 tiers for that. And G tier in Nintendo Cup, with no analysis available. So, yeah, it sounds like Onix was at the bottom of the barrel. Luckily, Onix got a shiny new upgrade thanks to its evolution from Metal Steelix has even more defense, now reaching the absolutely ridiculous number of 200. In addition, it got buffed in every area except speed, where it actually lost 40 points. But hey, it didn't really need that anyways. Unlike Scyther, Onix immediately was lost to the reaches of the lower tiers, so we won't talk about it anymore. Goodbye, Onix. Steelix resists normal moves and is immune to electric. And if you've been paying attention to our other Gen 2 vids, you know that lines up pretty well with the Gen 2 meta, given its top 3 threats. As with a large portion of the premier Gen 2 Pokemon, Steelix is using one of the 2 big sets of Curse and Rest Talk. In this case, Curse. In fact, being so slow actually worked to Steelix's advantage. Because it moved at such a glacial pace, it could phase out other phasers, cursors, and perish trappers like Mischievous with Roar. Despite its fearsome visage, Steelix's attack was still pretty mediocre. Earthquake was taken for stab, and if you really wanted more of a threat, you could take Rock Slide or Body Slam. But Explosion was the far more common option because it was guaranteed to blow almost anything up. For reference, an unboosted Explosion did 84 to 94% to Snorlax. This was partially why Steelix appreciated Spike support so much. It allowed it to pick up important KOs, but also gave it a little bit of momentum when phasing, as opposed to just roaring continuously. But although Steelix was no longer 4 times weak to water, it still hated it because of its garbage special defense. Water types, especially bulky ones like Vaporeon, Suicune, and Cloyster, gave Steelix flashbacks of Blastoise Hydro Pumps. It also exchanged its fire-type resistance for a weakness, and while Earthquake was pretty dangerous for most fire types, Pokemon that carried fire moves gave it trouble, especially Zapdos and Dragonite, who dodged EQ completely. Finally, since Steelix's HP was still not what you would hope for in a wall, certain physical attackers could punch through it, even with its juggernaut defense, like Marowak and Machamp, with super effective hits. But with all that said, Steelix was still solidly overused, as you can't overrate the usefulness of having a defensive pivot, especially one that has a good matchup against the metagame's top threats, and also one that can explode on anything, bar ghost types. Steelix didn't really gain much from Gen 3 as Sturdy and Rockhead were both useless abilities for the most part, but his moveset switched quite a bit. Curse was never too great on Steelix in the first place, so it started using either Toxic, Hidden Power Rock, Rest, or Explosion, alongside the holdovers of Earthquake and Roar. Steelix's lack of an offensive presence still hurt, but it could opt to at least inconvenience the opposing team with Toxic. This had nice synergy with its stab, as Steel and Poison types who could avoid poison were vulnerable to Earthquake, except for Starmer. In keeping with the last generation, it had good top-tier matchups, able to switch in on both Metagross and